Christopher Columbus was a man with a very big dream. He lived a long, long time ago when most people thought the world was flat. But Columbus was a sailor and he had studied many maps. He believed the world was round, like a ball. He thought that if he sailed west from Europe, he could find a new, faster way to get to Asia. This was a very important place because it had wonderful things like spices and silk. These treasures were very expensive and hard to get in Europe. Columbus wanted to find a shortcut across the ocean to bring these riches back home. This idea seemed very strange to most people. They were afraid of the vast unknown ocean. They called it the Sea of Darkness. They told stories of giant sea monsters and waterfalls at the edge of the world. But Columbus was not afraid. He was brave and determined. He spent years trying to convince someone important to help him. He needed money, ships, and a crew to make his daring journey. He went to the kings and queens of different countries, asking for their support for his big plan. Finally, after many years of trying, the king and queen of Spain, Ferdinand and Isabella, agreed to help him. They were excited by the idea of finding a new trade route to Asia. They thought it could make Spain very rich and powerful. They gave Columbus the money he needed to prepare for his incredible adventure. Columbus was so happy and excited. His lifelong dream was finally about to come true. He could now get everything ready for the most important voyage of his life. Columbus gathered 3 ships for his journey. They were not very big ships. The largest was the Santa Maria, which Columbus would command himself. The other 2 were smaller ships called the Pinta and the Nina. He found sailors who were brave enough to join him on his trip into the unknown. They packed the ships full of food, fresh water, and all the supplies they would need for many months at sea. Everything was ready. Columbus stood on the deck of his ship, looked toward the western horizon, and felt a mix of excitement and nervousness for the great challenge ahead. On August 3rd, 1492, Christoper Columbus and his crew left a port in Spain. The 3 small ships sailed out of the harbor and into the great Atlantic Ocean. The sun was shining and the sailors' hearts were full of hope. At first the journey went well. The winds were good and the ships moved steadily across the blue water. The sailors were busy, and they looked forward to reaching the shores of Asia soon. They had no idea that their journey would be much longer and more difficult than any of them had ever imagined. As weeks turned into a month, the sailors started to worry. They had been at sea for a very long time. All they could see in every direction was endless water. There was no sign of land anywhere. The men grew tired and scared. They missed their homes and their families. They began to think that Columbus had made a terrible mistake. Maybe the world was not round after all. Maybe they were sailing to their doom in the middle of this vast, empty ocean. The crew became restless and unhappy. They started to complain to Columbus. They wanted to turn back and go home to Spain. They were afraid they would run out of food and water before they found land. But Columbus was a strong leader. He told them to be patient and to trust him. He promised them that they would find land very soon. He pointed to signs he saw, like flocks of birds flying overhead and pieces of wood floating in the water. He said these were clues that land was near. Even with Columbus's encouraging words, the journey was very hard. The sailors had to face powerful storms that tossed their small ships around like toys. The waves were huge, and the wind howled loudly. The men had to work together to keep the ships from sinking. They were exhausted and frightened, but they kept sailing west. Every morning they would wake up and scan the horizon, desperately hoping to see a glimpse of land. The long days and nights on the open sea tested their courage and their belief in their captain's dream. After more than 2 long months at sea, the mood on the ships was very tense. The sailors were ready to give up. They had lost all hope of ever seeing land again. But then on the night of October 12th, 1492, a lookout on the Pinta shouted the words everyone had been waiting to hear, "Tierra! Tierra!" This meant land! Land! in Spanish. In the moonlight, they could see the dark outline of an island in the distance. The sailors were filled with joy and relief. They cheered and hugged each other. Their long, difficult journey was finally over. The next morning, Columbus and some of his men went ashore in a small boat. They stepped onto a beautiful sandy beach. The island was covered in lush green trees they had never seen before. Brightly colored birds flew through the air, and the air was warm and sweet. Columbus knelt down and thanked God for their safe arrival. He planted the flag of Spain in the sand, claiming the new land for the king and queen. He was sure he had reached the Indies, a part of Asia. That is why he called the people he met Indians. Soon, people came out from the trees to see these strange visitors. These were the native people of the land, the Taino people. They were very curious about Columbus and his men. They had never seen people who looked like them with their pale skin and thick beards. They had never seen such large ships or metal armor before. The Taino people were gentle and peaceful. They brought gifts of fresh fruit, cotton, and parrots to Columbus and his crew. Columbus gave them small gifts in return, like glass beads and little bells. Columbus was amazed by everything he saw. The land was so different from Europe. The plants, the animals, and the people were all new to him. He was very happy and proud. He believed he had succeeded in his mission. He thought he had found the new sea route to Asia, just as he had planned. He explored the island and other nearby islands for several weeks. He was looking for the gold and spices he had promised to bring back to Spain, but he did not find the great riches he expected to see. After exploring the islands for a few months, Columbus decided it was time to return to Spain. He wanted to tell the king and queen all about his amazing discovery. He left some of his men behind to build a small fort and sailed back across the Atlantic Ocean. The journey home was also very difficult, with terrible storms that nearly sank his ships. But he finally made it back to Spain. He was greeted as a great hero. He brought back some of the native people, exotic plants, and a few gold items to show the king and queen what he had found. Columbus's voyage was incredibly important. Even though he had not reached Asia, he had done something much more significant. He had found a whole new part of the world that Europeans did not know existed. His journey connected the continents of Europe, Africa, and the Americas for the first time. This connection is often called the Columbian Exchange. It led to the movement of people, animals, plants, and ideas between the old world of Europe and the new world of the Americas. This exchange changed life on both sides of the ocean forever. Europeans brought horses, cows, and wheat to the Americas. From the Americas, they took back potatoes, tomatoes, corn, and chocolate to Europe. These new foods changed the way people ate all over the world. However, the arrival of Europeans also brought many sad changes for the native people. They suffered from new diseases that the Europeans carried, and many lost their lands and their way of life. The story of Columbus is complicated, with both good and bad results. Today, we remember Christoper Columbus as a bold and determined explorer. His journey across the Atlantic Ocean was a major turning point in history. It opened up a new chapter for the entire world, leading to more exploration and settlement of the Americas. While he made a mistake and thought he was in the Indies, his accidental discovery of America changed the map of the world forever. His voyage marks the beginning of a new era, linking together different parts of our planet in ways that still affect us all today.